It's here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Curious World of I, who is I, me, Leon, just here sharing my self-discovery journey with others through travel, spirituality, storytelling, and much more. So with that being said, based on the title of this video, I want to share my experience that I have been participating in the past couple of months, which is ice baths or cold exposure and the Wim Hof Method. Now, the purpose of this video is not to go deep down into the science behind taking ice baths or doing cold exposure or even simply participating in the Wim Hof Method. It's more so just sharing my experience and my opinions on it in case you all are debating about wanting to try ice baths or the Wim Hof Method or any kind of breath work. And so with that being said, I think first and foremost to explain exactly for those that don't know, what are ice baths and what is the Wim Hof Method. And you can't explain the Wim Hof Method without first explaining who exactly Wim Hof is. And Wim Hof is a Dutch motivational speaker and extreme athlete who is known for the ability to withstand low temperatures and has held many world records for doing so. Also known for creating the Wim Hof Method, which is a mixture of cold exposure, breath work, and meditation. Through this, he has participated in studies where he was exposed to E. coli, which is a bacteria, and through that, he showed the ability to control his immune system and autonomic nervous system, which is a part of your nervous system that regulates involuntary physiological processes, including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, digestion, and even sexual arousal. So as I mentioned, the Wim Hof Method is essentially a mixture of cold exposure through things like ice baths, breathing exercises, and meditation. And recently I had the privilege of sitting in a Wim Hof Method class who was hosted by a trained Wim Hof Method professional to kind of educate us on, the Wim Hof Method breath work, including the cold exposure and how all these things can be used together and can have certain benefits. And so for those that don't really know much about breath work, essentially breath work is breathing exercises, intentional breathing exercises. I was actually reading a study, or it was also a podcast that was saying that most of us breathe inefficiently, whether we're awake or when we're asleep. And through doing these breath practices and breath work, you can help to increase your lung capacity. And also in regards to the Wim Hof Method and the breath work done there has also shown to increase the oxygen levels in your blood that comes with specific kind of benefits. And one of those key benefits is through the breath work, kind of learning how to control your autonomic responses, as I mentioned before in describing, who Wim Hof is and some of his abilities, especially whenever you are in the midst of a painful or unpleasurable experience, by focusing on your breathing techniques to kind of help you overcome those challenges mentally. And with that being said, one of the ways to practice that is through getting in an ice bath, an extremely cold bucket of water that's mixed with ice. That's essentially what an ice bath is, or some people call it cold exposure. So the real question is, why do people participate in ice baths? Now, there are many reasons why people would do ice baths. One opinion is that it helps to increase your threshold for uncomfortable situations, which in returns help you to deal with stressful environments more, I guess you could say, more efficiently, if you will. And it can help you to really learn how to stay calm in the midst of any sort of physical discomfort. So with that being said, essentially a lot of people will participate in ice baths to help with their overall mental and physical resilience. Now, there are some other benefits that comes with ice baths. For one, it can help with muscle soreness or inflammation, especially after vigorous workouts. However, there are been studies that are showing that for those that are trying to build muscle and muscle performance and endurance, that it's not recommended to take ice baths on the daily, maybe on a weekly basis, being that the inflammation that you feel post-workout is actually there to benefit you, to help regrow and get nutrients to the muscles so that they can grow bigger and stronger and perform better. Another benefit is that it can help with focus, improve breathing, boost metabolism. It's also known to be a mood booster or help in the aid of overall general mental health, and also to support your immune system. Now, with that being said, wherever there are benefits, there are also potential drawbacks, as being that based on a lot of what I read and listened to, a lot of people recommend to only do an ice bath for no longer than 10 to 12 minutes. Anything after 12 minutes typically tends to have a negative effect, but overall there are certain precautions to take before deciding to want to participate in ice baths, because so many communities of people are getting together and hosting their own ice baths and not really talking about the risks, or maybe people who should not participate in ice baths. So I want to share a little bit of that with you. And some of the risks come from if you have high blood pressure or heart disease, any sort of circulatory problems, or any artery diseases. Also, any conditions where you have an increased sensitivity to cold. So in mentioning the autonomic nervous system, it also, one of its jobs is to help regulate body temperature. So if you have an issue with that, where extreme colds or extreme hots make you feel uncomfortable, you definitely don't want to do an ice bath. And then also if you have any open wounds. So now this is the part of the video where I want to really jump into my experience in participating in a Wim Hof Method class. Now, for first and foremost, the one key takeaway that I took away from the experience is just how important the breath really is. So for example, a lot of times when we feel nervous or we're frightened or scared, we begin to hyperventilate, and from that there's a series of chain reactions that happen that sometimes causes us to tense up. So for example, if you're walking down a trail and you happen to see a snake, usually your breath kind of escapes you, and if you pay attention to those moments when you're in emotional discomfort, pay attention to how you're breathing. So the breath plays a vital role. Not only breathing keeps us alive, but learning how to breathe more efficiently. Really what I learned is how breathing is essentially connected to sometimes how you emotionally feel, and can also bring a sort of mindfulness or more awareness of how you're also physically feeling. And through the experience, as we're going through the breathwork class and we're breathing our breathing begins to intensify as we're breathing on a rhythm, on a beat, and as the beat begins to speed up and we're breathing faster. And then I also noticed my ability, that my lung capacity was kind of expanding, because during that times through the breath work, you're required to hold your breath for a moment of time. And I was actually surprised how long, after I got warmed up, how long I could actually hold my breath. And in some cases, they will say while doing breath work that you'll essentially put yourself to sleep or maybe pass out essentially. And most of the time when at least in this class that I took, all of us were laying down. And there was even one experience where I felt the sensation as if I passed out. I don't really know. I was laying there and I was breathing and just looking up, and all I remember was just kind of like waking up, almost like I had fallen asleep, and I woke up and I was just super alert and hyper focused. But it wasn't really like frantic. I was pretty much calm through the situation. I don't really know if I really passed out or not, or just simply laying on the floor and getting comfy and I fell asleep. However, overall, breath work has been known to aid in mental, physical, and even spiritual well-being, as many people know when breathing or meditating, in through the nose, out through the mouth, or some form of breathing to help you kind of to eliminate the chatter in your mind and to become more conscious and focused of how you're feeling physically and emotionally. Now, to move on to the ice bath experience, the fun part, right? And so I think first and foremost, I would also like to explain, why I decided to participate in the ice bath or cold plunge challenge. It was kind of in a time where my job was just very mundane. I mean, I work out a lot, and even sometimes working out kind of loses its edge, and I was looking for a new mental physical challenge. And I said, oh, when I end up seeing the flyer for the ice bath class and Wim Hof class, I said, you know, that seems like something that I would definitely want to do and participate in, being that I saw a lot of people doing it on social media, and I had known that people did it before, especially being an athlete, doing the cold plunge, which is getting into a tub of cold water. But the ice bath seemed definitely way more extreme, especially when you see the amount of ice in the tub. So I really wanted to find out what was the mental resilience or toughness behind getting in an ice bath, and that's why I decided to try it. Now, in the Wim Hof class, we essentially they had 4 tubs, so it was kind of cool to go with a group at a time, and it was a beginner's class, so they recommended for us to just try to do 2 minutes, and at the end, you can dip your entire head under the water.
Catch that breath. Catch that breath.
Now, essentially, when getting into the water, they recommend that you get the water above your heart, essentially, so you can really get the full effect of the cold exposure. Now, when you first get in, when I put my foot in, I think my adrenaline was pumping from the whole experience, but it wasn't really that bad once I put my foot in. Now, when I put my body in up to my neck, which is, you know, once you put all the way up to your neck, all your vital organs are underneath the water. And the first sensation, the first 15 to 30 seconds is very uncomfortable, I will say. Your fight or flight response kicks in, where I almost felt my mind physically wanting to tell my body to get out of the water. But that's the part of doing ice bath and cold exposure, is overcoming that situation, building that resilience, and focusing on your breathing, because when you get in, your body kind of goes in a slight shock, where you do begin to kind of hyperventilate. And that's where the breath work comes into play, where you really begin to have to focus on your breathing.
Oh yeah, deep dive.
All right, circle up.
And it becomes kind of a mind over matter situation. And typically for me, I like to look at the end of the bucket or bath and just focus on that and just focus on my breathing. And typically after the 1 minute mark, it doesn't really have an effect. You just kind of relaxed or sedated in the water. And for some points of time, I did feel my toes and fingers tingling a little bit. But essentially after that, it really didn't have that much of effect on me being in the cold. In fact, I felt, even as a beginner, I felt that I could go a little bit longer than 2 minutes to really see what I could do. Now, essentially, I've participated in other ice bath community events since then, and the longest I've ever done is 7 minutes.
I just started teaching it 4 weeks ago.
10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blast off!
And part of doing the Wim Hof Method, we also learned sort of these kind of movements and techniques and breathing patterns, along with movements to help our bodies to naturally warm itself up, as opposed to looking for external means to warm ourselves up. So in getting out of the ice bath, I immediately begin to kind of do those movements, and you do begin to feel your body heating up, which is, in response, has some benefits in terms of teaching your body how to heat its own self up, and how to get the blood pumping to the vital organs and getting nutrients and so forth. And that's where kind of the inflammation part begins to come in handy in regards to taking ice baths. But essentially in getting out, I will say you're definitely going to feel cold. And in fact, I felt colder getting out of the ice bath than in the ice bath, as my body starts to kind of shake and trying to warm itself up, but you just keep moving. And I would say, in terms of effects that I felt after getting out of the ice bath, hours or days later, I would say that I definitely noticed my sleep improve. Typically, I tend to stay up late, but after 2 or 3 days after taking an ice bath, I noticed my body naturally gets tired at a reasonable hour, and I have a more restful sleep. I do also notice, in terms of inflammation, I work out a lot, usually weightlifting, and so if I'm sore from an exercise 2 days prior to doing the ice bath, which is generally where you begin to feel the peak amount of soreness, is generally speaking 2 days after you work out that muscle group, I definitely noticed noticed the sensation, the aching sensation that you feel after working out kind of wasn't there as much as it would be had I not taken the ice bath. In terms of mental health, I did notice a mood boost as and learning a little bit about the studies, how, you know, pain and pleasure kind of works in the human mind in terms of the dopamine effect and so forth. And at least some studies I've read where they've said that taking an ice bath afterwards can increase dopamine significantly, which overall helps you feel happier, more engaged, more focused. And so throughout days after taking the ice bath, I did notice where I was a little bit calmer, a little bit more upbeat, if you will, after, for me, getting the satisfaction to know that I overcome such a difficult and stressful situation, such as getting into a cold ice bath. And then lastly, I almost feel like it also had some sort of cosmetic effect, as getting into the ice bath kind of makes your skin a little bit tighter as it kind of reacts to the cold water. And I would say that days afterwards, I definitely felt like my skin was a lot clearer, a little bit more vibrant and so forth. Now, I don't know if that's for everybody, but that's just something that I noticed in terms of sharing my experiences with you all. Now, lastly, in wrapping up this video, I want to say whether or not if this is something that I would consistently participate in. Now, when it comes to the breath work, I pretty much meditate on a daily basis for at least 10 minutes a day, usually in morning and night. But in terms of the breath work, I don't know if that's something that I would do every day, but anytime I see a breathwork event, I would definitely visit it. I don't think it's something that I would necessarily practice on my own. In terms of the ice baths, even after the Wim Hof class, they definitely recommended us to kind of keep up with the cold exposure through taking cold showers. And they have this whole worksheet where you start off 1 week doing 15 minutes of cold water, typically at the end of your shower, and you build yourself up to 2 minutes of cold shower. And some people try to take their entire shower in cold water to kind of continue to build that sort of resilience and toughness, and also having the benefits effects of feeling or effects of cold exposure through taking a cold shower. And for those that might be considering wanting to take an ice bath, I would almost say to start there first, taking cold showers before actually attempting to do an ice bath, so you can kind of get used to the sensation of feeling the cold exposure. But taking ice baths is something that I feel like I really got a lot out of it, to where I would seek to try to do it once a week. I tried doing it in my own tub. It doesn't work as the same effect as having a tub, but when the day comes that I have a house and so forth, I would definitely buy myself one of these tubs and try to do something like this, ice baths on the weekly, or even twice a week, probably no more than twice a week. So overall, I would definitely recommend to do that, to give it a try. If you ever see a Wim Hof Method class being taught somewhere near you, or a breathwork class, or an ice bath event, I would definitely say challenge yourself to go and try to do at least 1 minute and see if you can get the effects or feel the effects. And overall, if you don't feel any benefits from it other than just simply being cold, just know that you now have overcome a very challenging situation, and I hope that you can get something from that, knowing that, just to show how mental and physically tough you actually are. So again, I'm glad to share this experience with you all. Put in the comment section below what's your experience with the Wim Hof Method, or if you've taken ice baths, or maybe some of the fears that you might have around getting into a bucket of ice. I would definitely like to hear about your experience as well too. So as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Peace.